The sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the rusty old cemetery gate that creaked slightly in the evening breeze. Morton and his team stood near the entrance, armed with their equipment, ready to document the inexplicable occurrences they had heard so much about. The air was thick with the earthy aroma of fresh grave soil, and the sun's disappearance brought an uncomfortable chill, although it was still early autumn. As they crossed the threshold, the sound of crunching leaves underfoot echoed in the stillness, interrupted only by the distant call of a lonely crow. Just as they set up their cameras, a low static began to crackle from the handheld monitor, faint but persistent. Morton scratched his head, perplexed, as the screen flickered with intermittent patches of gray, swirling like shadows in the night. "Can you hear that?" Maria whispered, glancing at the others as a sensuous chill blanketed the clearing, prickling the back of Morton's neck. He nodded, trying to shake off the creeping sensation that came creeping under his skin, but the static intensified, droning low like a dismal requiem. They moved deeper into the graveyard, wandering past crumbling headstones and weathered statues, each step heavy with an unshakable sense of being watched. The acrid scent of decay mingled with the damp earth, and every once in a while, a cool breath of wind swept through, whispering around them. Each gust stirred images of forgotten lives that seemed to linger in heavy silence, but surely they were freezing memories, weren't they? Suddenly Morton's monitor captured a glimpse, an orb of light darting between the gravestones. His breath quickened, and so did the static, now buzzing loudly enough to feel like a tension in the air. The distortion grew clearer moment by moment, transforming the trails of light into shadowy figures that slid just out of view. "There's something there," he said, lunging forward with curiosity. They set up in the center of a wide clearing, illuminated by the silvery moon that hung overhead. The team panned their cameras, whispering excitedly, but as they rewound the footage, an unsettling revelation arose. The static was not just interference. The figures captured on screen were identical, across every location they had visited over the past week. The same restless spirits, trapped in a haunting loop. Then, just as they were about to shift to another location, the temperature dropped dramatically, a sharp bite that turned their breath to vapor. Maria's joking demeanor faded as she pointed, pale-faced, toward a lone grave adorned with wilted flowers, untouched by the ravages of time. Inscribed was a name they all recognized, Lila Stain, an early settler who had vanished mysteriously over a century ago. A loud crackle erupted from the monitor, sending them reeling back, and static filled the air, a rising storm of static that drowned out all sound, leaving them frozen in that moment, as the shadows encroached even closer, now pulsating with a frenetic intensity. The images warped and twisted into a singular distorted face, glaring back at them from the screen, mouth wide open in a soundless wail that could be felt deep in their bones. An overwhelming sensation of despair washed over them, binding them with unseen threads that pulled tightly at their very souls. As the visage faded and the static subsided, silence settled over the graveyard. The team, frozen in shock, felt an odd pressure release as they stood, staring at each other wide-eyed. They were left in that chilling stillness, but one truth hung palpably in the misty air. They had just breached a threshold that should have never been crossed. Realizing they had invited the weight of the past into their present, Morton made a decision. They would contain the recordings, erase them, and leave this place with a lesson buried deep in their hearts. As they turned for home, the wind sighed through the trees, a sorrowful farewell of the voices they unleashed and the stories that would forever remain untold. And in the still night, as their footsteps faded, the static began to crackle once more, entwining with the thickened fog lingering over the graveyard, ever watchful, ever hungry.